It's time to be honest about Bryce James, because his high school career isn't going so hot. Bryce for years has been under the radar compared to his big brother, Bronny James. And now that Bronny is catching strays left and right for his undeserved position on the Los Angeles Lakers, the narrative has spread that Bryce James is the true savior of the James family legacy. But what if I told you by the same age, it appears that Bryce James isn't even living up to the standards of his big brother? Bryce James, now 17 years old, has remained a somewhat enigmatic figure in basketball circles. While Bronny has received intense media attention as early as elementary school for his on-the-court play, Bryce has mostly flown under the radar for much of his career. Early scouting reports were optimistic, praising his potential to develop into a player with a similar frame to LeBron's 6'8" stature. In 2021, for example, 247 Sports highlighted Bryce's height, natural shooting ability, basketball IQ, and defensive instincts as key strengths, slotting him as the 24th best player in the class. Though middle school rankings will oftentimes vary wildly from the rankings by the end of high school. At 14 years old, he was already taller than his father had been at the same age after an early growth spurt, and projections suggested he might reach or exceed LeBron's height. However, as Bryce progressed through high school, these lofty expectations have faced challenges. Playing at Sierra Canyon, Bryce has struggled to stand out. Sierra Canyon is a national powerhouse that pumps out NBA prospects on a yearly basis. This is like a high school you see in a movie compared to a normal high school. And for that reason, Bryce's role has been very limited. And honestly, I don't know if that's for the best.
Doing that team up shit, it hurts your children. I said high school is development for you and your child. It ain't about winning fucking championships.
Don't say that. Coach T.
I'm sorry, no,
I was gonna ask why you didn't send him right to Sierra. And
like I've never seen a college coach come down and say, yo, how many high school championships you won? How many AAU championships you won? No, you average 40, I want you. Right? I got a bunch of people that can pass the ball to you.
Gil might have a bit of a point here. As a junior, he has received a limited playing time and remains buried in the team's lineup despite being ranked as a 4-star prospect and the 100th best player in his class, while as a senior, he's currently coming off the bench for Sierra Canyon. This disparity between his ranking and on-court performance has led to skepticism about the justification for his status as a top prospect. I mean, Bryce is currently ranked 257th on 247 Sports while being a 4-star on ESPN. The rankings are all over the board, and they're just numbers at the end of the day. But Bryce James is 17 years old, and it feels as though we've only gotten a very limited view of his game. The story of Bryce James has evolved over the years, with significant ups and downs in his scouting trajectory. In middle school, Bryce showed flashes of potential, but was not considered a standout talent. Scouts noted his natural shooting stroke, high basketball IQ, and willingness to defend, but also flagged areas for improvements, such as his lack of refined movements and a somewhat awkward playing style. I mean, this guy was Bronny's chubby little brother, and all of a sudden he turned into a 6'6" slender man. This guy's physical frame changed wildly, as he was becoming an actual prospect rather than just a kid. At times, it seemed Bryce was still growing into his body, lacking the explosive athleticism and fluidity that define elite NBA prospects. I mean, his agility and footwork are only going to improve. I'm not saying this is a critical knock on his game, but for quite a while now, when watching Bryce James move on the floor, he might look closer to his dad height-wise compared to Bronny, but he doesn't move nearly as well as him. In recent years, the narrative around Bryce's game has shifted further. While he has grown taller, reports about his heights have been inconsistent, fluctuating between 6'4" and 6'6". This 2-inch difference might seem minor, but in basketball, it significantly impacts expectations and the required skill set. A 6'4" player is expected to have a tight handle on the ball, should be able to create their own shot, and hit other players as well. I mean, the bar is high as fuck for modern guards, because there's so many talented 1s and 2s out there that you have to be able to do it all to a high level. Now, as a 6'6" player, you can afford to rely more on shooting and versatility. If you're a wing guy at 6'6", you kind of can specialize a bit more at a thing or two you're best at, while any versatility is a plus, and elite versatility instantly makes you a star. Regardless of his height, Bryce has not yet demonstrated the playmaking, defense, or scoring ability necessary to distinguish himself as a future NBA talent. Bryce's strength as a player remains in his shooting and overall skill, I'd say. His shot is a smooth and consistent follow-through with solid energy transfer from his legs and a good follow-through throughout. Bryce has clearly been working at his game for a while. This kid's pretty crafty all around. I'd say compared to Bronny at the same age, or hell, even Bronny in the NBA, Bryce might be the better shot maker. He has a decent little bag of effective moves, with a really nice pull-up, turnaround, and catch-and-shoot jumper, as well as some touch and body control in the paint. However, he has struggled with efficiency, particularly in high-pressure games consistently. Defensively, Bryce shows promise as a team defender, demonstrating strong awareness and a commitment to help defense, yet his perimeter defense remains a weakness and needs to develop greater strength to compete at higher levels. He's kind of getting babied out there. I know he's destined to fill out more, but comparative to Bronny, whose role as a bulky athletic ball stopper defensively in high school, Bryce is just more of a system defender with a good IQ that doesn't have the physical bruteness or the athleticism of his big bro. Despite these limitations, Bryce has had moments of brilliance. For instance, during the EBL circuit, he scored 21 points in a game against the second-ranked player in his class, hitting shots from all over the perimeter. Performances like these highlight his potential when he's at his best. Unfortunately, such games have been the exception rather than the rule. In other high-profile events like the Nike Peach Jam, Bryce struggled significantly, averaging just 5.6 points on 31% shooting from the field and 18% from three-point range. These numbers are concerning, especially given the importance of these tournaments in shaping rankings and draft stock. If you're watching this right now, there's a 95% chance that you aren't subscribed to the channel, so make sure to change that. It's free and it really helps me get more of these videos out to you at a higher quality and a higher duration, so make sure you click that button for me. The inconsistencies in Bryce's game raise questions about the influence of media narratives on his rankings. For example, after a subpar performance in the Nike Peach Jam, Bryce's rankings on 247 Sports inexplicably rose by over 30 spots despite having a very bad weekend, to put it lightly. This discrepancy suggests that his LeBron genetics might be inflating his standing in the eyes of scouts and analysts. While Bryce is undoubtedly a talented player, his current abilities do not place him on the same trajectory as his father or even his older brother Bronny, who is widely regarded as a more complete player at the same stage in high school. Through his junior year, Bryce James averages 7, 2, and 2 at Sierra Canyon, which isn't much worse than that of Bronny James, who averaged 8.8 points, 3.3 rebounds, and 2.8 assists per game. What seems to be different about the two is that Bronny had his role figured out from an early age. Bronny was always the facilitating guard with a dribble drive game, good court vision, and most of all was an elite defender at 2 rips a game. When it comes to Bryce, it just doesn't feel the same. The only thing that everyone has really come to agree on with his game so far is that his jump shot, as well as the rest of his craft, looks and feels pretty nice, while looking more like a baby LeBron than his big brother. But with shooting inconsistencies and a lack of chance to develop against varsity talents and poor play at the AAU scene, we really don't know what the finished product of Bryce James is going to look like. The comparisons between Bryce and Bronny have been a constant source of media speculation. Recently, some have argued that Bryce has more potential than Bronny, but other than being taller than him and Bronny's career being a hot-button issue, there's not a ton of reasons to back this. Bronny seems to have gotten athleticism of his dad and the height of his mom, while Bryce seems to have gotten the opposite. These two are completely different players that are not even really worth comparing. The only consistency within the two is a magnifying glass that will soon also be placed on Bryce. And as I'm sure most of us would be willing to bet, of his collegiate offers, Bryce is likely going to attend either USC or Ohio State. In either case, with how Bronny turned out, I'm surely willing to hope that Bryce takes his time more seriously. It's alright to not be a one-and-done talent, even if you have James on the back of your jersey. And by the looks of his game at the moment, he might need a few years to build his frame and to build a role for himself to be ready to play at the professional level. And that's okay. As Bryce prepares to transition from high school to college or other developmental pathways, the question of his NBA potential still remains open. At his current skill level, he is not ready to compete at the professional level, of course, but it's far too early. Admittedly, he's not quite the player that some are hyping him up to be. However, players develop at different rates, and Bryce still has time to refine his game. When you're the son of LeBron James, you have to grow up quickly, but this is still just a 17-year-old kid at the end of the day. Growth spurts, improved strength, and dedicated training could all contribute to significant progress in the coming years. Now, Bryce James is a talented high school player with potential, but he is far from a sure thing when it comes to NBA prospects. His development will depend on his ability to address weaknesses in his game, including efficiency, strength, and really finding and dialing that role he can play given his ability. At the same time, the media will be yanking this guy's chain for years to come, so he's going to need to be ready to commit to his training program through the highs and the lows. And maybe he could surpass Bronny, since there was certainly a couple of choices he made that affected his game negatively today. For Bryce, the journey ahead is about finding his own identity as a player, separate from the legacy of his family. With hard work and perseverance, he has the opportunity to carve out a successful path in basketball, whether that leads to the NBA or another avenue entirely. Thank you for watching if you made it this far. and I'll see you boys in the next one. Peace out.